Hey, it's the Bible Forum. It is April 8th, 2018, and we're taking a look at the science behind same-sex attraction. Now, as we start, I want to give you a little hint here. And the hint is, there isn't any. But that doesn't stop people from insisting there is. A case in point, the Tucker Carlson show on Fox News recently, interviewing Jordan Peterson, who's a Canadian, and he's not a fan of gender bending. Now, Canada requires citizens to verbally support transgenderism by law. Free speech? Nope, not in Canada. Carlson asked Peterson whether his anti-transgenderism views on sex and gender were rare in academia. And he answered by saying, "I think they're more common than you think." He went on to say, "My views on gender, for example, and sex are shared widely among people in the psychometric personality community." That's people who measure personality traits. It isn't conscientious. The only people, conscientious. It isn't contentious, however. The only people that find it contentious or are contentious are the gender ideologues. They have a vested interest in pushing this thing. But they've already lost the scientific battle, and so they've taken it to the legislative front to enforce their views. So the scientist from Canada says. Here in the United States, Justice Anthony Kennedy, in a case between Obergefell and Hodges, declared that the plaintiff's homosexual sexual orientation could not change. Homosexuality was, to borrow Kennedy's words, their immutable nature. And as a result, practicing homosexuals were only capable of marrying members of their own sex. He forgot to indicate that it isn't marriage that they can accomplish. It is only a social union. When you marry a couple, there's something else going on. It's like marrying metals. Another discussion. Jeremiah Keenan is a pro-life activist and a freelance writer who regularly takes on leftists relative to this issue and some other things. And he writes, quote, "While many doubt the truth of Kennedy's statement, almost everyone I meet, liberal or conservative, tends to assume, like Tucker Carlson, that the majority of expert opinion somehow backs Kennedy's claim. Indeed, Kennedy did cite a partisan brief put together by politically active members of the American Psychological Association. But although this brief confidently combated, quote, stereotype-based rationales that the Equal Protection Clause was designed to prohibit, end of quote, it did not dare to assert that sexual orientation was immutable. Reason? Because there's no scientific evidence that sexual orientation is immutable. At the same time, there is conclusive scientific evidence that most people who experience exclusive same-sex attraction end up developing an interest in the opposite sex over time. This is so well established, he said, that scholars are busy publishing methods to measure frequency of sexual orientation change in massive longitudinal studies of youth and young adults. For example, how many times in 9 years can we expect a homosexual sexual orientation to change? Is the change associated with lifestyle habits? Who changes more frequently, males or females? The conclusion? There is a 1% chance of consistent same-sex attraction. In this study, Dr. Rich Savin Williams examined a representative sample of more than 12,000 American youth, following each from the age of 16 to 22. Rather than rely on individuals' reconstruction of his or her past based on current identity, researchers met with subjects 3 times throughout that 6-year period. Each time they asked individuals, it was on a computer to protect their privacy, whether they had had a romantic attraction to a member of the opposite or same sex since their last interview. 17-year-old males reported about a 1.5% frequency of romantic attraction with members of their own gender. 5 years later, the 1.5% were asked again. 70% of males reported a 180-degree flip in their sexual orientation. They had romantic feelings only for women. Women, about a 40% flip. Another 45% reported feelings for both male and female. Only 1% of women who at 17 years of age reported a full year of exclusive same-sex attraction went on to report a similar experience in the 5 years that followed. Similarly, a 2011 study that just under 30% of those who identified as homosexuals at 46 indicated that they are now identifying as bisexual or heterosexual at 56. And a number of similar studies abound. What cannot be found in all of these peer-reviewed studies, apparently, is support for even half of what the LGBT movement wants us to believe. To borrow Peterson's words, they lost the battle on the scientific front, and no one familiar with the literature takes their propaganda seriously. But they've been quite successful on the judicial front at enforcing their views. In this venue, a judge need only make a statement to make that true.